Welcome to the Atman Experience, a 16-week self-study course created by popularvedicscience.com. In this course, we cover the basic topics in consciousness studies from the perspective of the Vedas of India. Our first unit is on the Vedic scientific method. In these classes, you'll learn about the Vedic process of knowledge and practical experiments you can make on your own to experience consciousness for yourself. Today's class is on a topic known as epistemology. How do we know what we know? In other words, where does our knowledge come from? Generally speaking, there are three ways we acquire knowledge about the world around us. The first is through direct experience. Using our five senses, sight, touch, taste, smell, and hearing, we interact with our environment. In this way, we accumulate knowledge about the natural world. In Sanskrit, this is known as pratyaksha, or direct sensory perception. When we see something, we know it's real. Of course, we can sometimes be mistaken, such as when we mistake a shadow for a real person. This is also why in criminal trials, eyewitness testimony is no longer considered to be fully reliable. People make mistakes. Nonetheless, direct perception is the most powerful source of evidence, and it's the ultimate test for reality. The next method of knowledge is based on critical thinking and analysis. Based on what we have learned about the world, we are able to recognize patterns and come to new conclusions. This is known as inductive reasoning. In Sanskrit, this process is known as anuman, or logical reasoning. The field of philosophy relies primarily on this process of knowledge. The modern scientific method is a combination of both pratyaksha and anuman, direct perception and logical reasoning. In this way, scientists create theories about how the universe works. The third and final process of knowledge is by far the most commonly used and commonly ignored. Most people don't realize that this is where they get practically everything they know about life in the world. Can you guess what it is? In Sanskrit, this third and most important process of knowledge is known as Sabda, or hearing. Almost everything we know, we heard and accepted from somebody else whom we considered to be an authority on the subject. This begins with our parents, who teach us how to talk, and our teachers, who show us how to read and write. Now we'll see an example to understand the difference between these three ways we acquire knowledge. Imagine you're in your house, looking out the window. All of a sudden, you hear thunder in the distance, and you see dark rain clouds covering the horizon. Then you see rain begin to fall on the grass outside. These are all examples of pratyaksha, direct sensory experience. You know for sure, it's raining. Now, imagine you're lying in your bed in the middle of the night. All of a sudden you hear the soft sound of rain on the rooftop. You've heard this sound many times before, so you know that it means it's raining outside. This is an example of anuman, a logical conclusion. Okay, now let's imagine you're talking to a friend on the phone who lives in New York City. In the middle of the conversation, he tells you that it has just started to rain. This is an example of Sabda, hearing from someone who knows. Although you can't verify it for yourself, unless you get on a plane and fly to New York, you can accept that it's true because you know he's a trustworthy person. As it turns out, and as we've already discussed, the vast majority of our knowledge falls into this third category of Sabda, what we have heard and accepted on the basis of trust. Let's look at a few examples. This is a map of the world. I didn't draw this map. I haven't visited most of these countries. How do I know this is what they really look like? How do I know that they all even exist? I can accept that this map is accurate if I trust the person who created it. Otherwise, I need to visit each part of the world by myself and create my own map. Of course, this would be a very time-consuming process. These are ruins of ancient Egypt. Everything I know about Egyptian history I either heard from a history teacher or read in a book. In fact, the entire field of history is based on Sabda, hearing from authorities. Often these primary sources include first-person accounts of events, biographies, newspaper articles, and so on. But for those of us who were not alive back then, all we have to rely on for knowledge of the past is what we receive through hearing or reading. In the hard sciences, the theories that are accepted as true are often referred to as the scientific consensus. This means that a community of experts in a specific field has determined a theory to be the most robust in terms of its ability to explain how we perceive the world. However, for the average person who lacks knowledge and expertise in the field, we can only accept the conclusions of the experts on the basis of trust. This is of course reasonable. After all, we can't expect to become experts ourselves in every single field. So we have little choice but to accept the results of other people's research. How else would we gain a comprehensive understanding of the world? All of this becomes a bit problematic when we hear so many conflicting ideas coming at us from every direction. In whom do we place our trust? We would be hard-pressed to come up with answers to every question all on our own. But when so many people say so many different things, it becomes difficult to formulate a truly scientific worldview. To further complicate things, the scientific consensus is frequently shifting. Theories turn out to be wrong or incomplete, and thought leaders are not always as genuine as they seem. Too often, what we thought were facts turn out to be fake. The Vedas can be compared to a sun rising on the horizon, illuminating the landscape of knowledge and dissipating the clouds of uncertainty and confusion. Why? Because the Vedas define who should truly be accepted as an authority, someone worth hearing from. If we readily accept the conclusions of the scientific consensus on the best practices of paleontology and microbiology, then shouldn't we also seek out an expert in the science of consciousness? According to the Vedas, only a person who understands life's real problems and who has a solution for them is a learned person. This is proved by their own rigorous experiments in self-realization and the evidence of their own character. They exhibit such qualities as profound humility, tolerance, compassion, and simplicity. And they endeavor to teach others in this science so that they can experience for themselves the wonders of pure consciousness. In fact, contrary to the mainstream conception of spirituality, true spiritual discipline is also based on pratyaksha, direct sensory experience. As Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, yoga is pratyakshavangamam dharmyam. The Vedic scientific method grants the practitioner direct trans-empiric experience of the transcendental nature of consciousness beyond the physical limitations of the body and mind. How does it do this? Through the power of supramundane sound, the Vedas convey direct experience of our supraconscious source. This is the highest manifestation of Sabda. In particular, by chanting Vedic mantras, one cleanses the mind, which is compared to a lake in which we perceive a reflection of our true self. When the mind is agitated, we cannot properly perceive our own self. However, when the mind is still, then we can experience consciousness for what it is. The Vedic scientific method is the process of stilling the mind to enable a direct sensory experience of our own existence as an eternal, conscious being. Any questions? Please feel free to write us at popvedsci@icloud.com. We'll be happy to hear from you. And look forward to our next class going even deeper into the Vedic scientific method. Thanks for watching.